Hello my dearest friends, welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. It's been a while since I did a sports romance recommendation video. It's been almost a year, I think, and in the meantime I have read plenty of sports romances that I can recommend to you today. So I'm just going to link up in the cards the video that I did last year, because then you can get some more recommendations, because the ones that are mentioned there are not going to be on this list. These are all plenty new recommendations that you can get from me. And then the one that I did last year, I really liked the idea of how I did it then, because I chose different sports and then I gave you recommendations for each of the sports. And I'm going to do the same today. It's going to be like a guide into sports romance kind of video, because there's going to be plenty of new sports that I discovered in the past year, or at least I discovered romances with those sports in them. And I've been loving just discovering these new kinds of romances, because we have all read plenty of NFL and NHL kinds of romances, but it's just wonderful to also read about Formula One and motocross and gymnastics and ice skating and surfing and all these sports that feature some kind of adrenaline, some kind of, discipline and forbidden aspects, because we've got coach athlete and whatever, just so many different kinds of aspects within the sports world that are featured within the romances as well. I've been loving them, all of them. So I'm going to recommend all of the ones that I've really loved. A couple of them I actually didn't love, but I'm still going to recommend because they're really unique. So you're going to hear from me when that time comes that I need to recommend a book that wasn't a favorite of mine, but I would still recommend it because it's really unique. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and dive into the books. I've split them up according to the different sports that I'm going to recommend books in, and I'm going to start with Formula One. As you see, I'm on theme here. I'm wearing my partner's Formula One t-shirt, and he's going to kill me when he sees me in this shirt, because he's always complaining that I'm wearing his clothes. I'm one of these people. I wear my partner's clothes and he's always on me about it, and I can't stop. I really don't know what it is, but I just feel really comfortable in his clothes. Anyway, I'm going to talk about a really exciting Formula One romance that I just recently read. It's Lights Out by Kayla James. This book is available on KU, so if you want to check it out there, it definitely is available. It features two Formula One racers. One of them is this kind of world champion, already very experienced racer, while the woman in the scenario, yes, we have a female race car driver. I love that. She is kind of the rookie, the underdog, someone who is going to get underestimated on the circuit, and she gets invited into this brand new team, and they're going to be teammates. So they have this partnership together, so a friendship that gets built throughout their teammate kind of situation, and then forced proximity as well as a lot of adrenaline because of the races that they get involved in. It's just such a wonderful romance, and such an organic kind of romance, because their feelings grow as they travel together, as they work together, as they race together. Even though they are competitors, they're also teammates, so they help each other out. And I really love this story. So if you're on the lookout for a Formula One adrenaline-filled read, this one is going to be it for you. And speaking about Formula One romances, I feel like authors often kind of sense a hype coming up. That was the case with NFL, like American football romances. They had their time, and then it was hockey romances, and now I feel like motorsports, like Formula One and motorsports romances are going to be a thing this year, because just the past month, I think, there were 3 new releases with Formula One plots in them. So I'm very curious to see if this is going to be a trend. And then additionally, we've got the original kind of series that was really popular by Lauren Asher. It's the series that was starting with Throttled, I think was the first book. I really did enjoy that one. I think I gave it 3.5 stars, but as far as I understood from like the reviews on Goodreads, I think the 3rd and 4th book are the most popular ones. I still need to get to those. But yeah, I'm sensing some kind of a hype going on with the adrenaline-filled romances, and I'm really here for it, because I've been enjoying the heck out of the books that I've been reading with those kinds of sports. The next one that I'm going to mention, the next sport, is motocross. are very on theme, and it's a sport that I didn't know very much about, but once I read Burnout by Rebecca Jenshak, I was obsessed. I definitely want to read more with motocross or motor racers, motocross racers, motocross. Let's just call it motocross because I am not good at distinguishing roles within that sport. But yeah, basically Burnout by Rebecca Jenshak was chef's kiss for me. It's not only a motocross romance, it also involves a gymnast within the plot. So there's two sports where we get highlights for both of the sports within the book, and it's just chef's kiss. We've got our hero Knox, who is this motocross racer. He's in this predicament because he got in trouble with his team, and he kind of needs to prove himself because he was kicked off of his team. And then we've got our heroine Avery, who is a gymnast, and she recently got injured, so she's getting over an injury, and she definitely wants to get back into shape to get into the Olympics. The two of them don't like each other very much at the start of the book, but they strike up a deal that she's going to help him with some training tips because he needs to improve his stability on the motorbike because he's going to be doing some stunts. This book was just outstanding. I gave it 5 stars and I'll recommend it on every single video that I can this year, I think. And then another motocross, I think it's motocross again, romance that I'm going to recommend. It's one that I didn't specifically love myself, but it has a high rating on Goodreads, as well as many people that I follow really love this book. So it could be that I'm the odd one out. So it could be that my opinion is not as valid as theirs, and it could be that you're going to love this one and that is just not my cup of tea. The book is Garen Park by Nordica Knight. This one is a male-male romance. The two of them hate each other's guts, so this definitely is a hate to love story, but really taken to the extreme because these two really hate each other. They're rivals on the motocross scene and they live in this trailer park. There is talk of a lot of poverty. There are some triggers that you need to check because this definitely hits kind of dark topics within the book. There is also talk of abuse, and there is actual abuse on page as well, so you definitely need to check your triggers for this one. But if you really like hate to love and a lot of banter, and it's not even banter, it's more like very much like bickering between the characters, this one has an abundance of that. So while this one was not a favorite of mine, I definitely would urge you to check it out to see if it's going to be something that you may possibly like. So an interesting sport that I never gave any thought about is rodeo riding. I think that is the proper term for it. And we of course have Miss Elsie Silver to thank for getting all of us into that sport with Flawless, the first book within the Chestnut Spring series. We've got our hero Red, who is this rodeo rider. He gets into some trouble in the media, so he gets someone from his management agency to kind of help him out with his image, and that someone is Summer. She's actually his boss's daughter, essentially. So it's kind of forbidden, it's workplace, obviously, and we get a lot of action with the rodeo for sure. It's a very banter-filled and very fun read. It's a very spicy read as well, and I definitely would recommend it. If you haven't read it yet, it's definitely chef's kiss. And then another book that came out, it's another cowboy kind of romance. It's Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. In this one, it's actually the heroine who was doing the rodeo riding, and she had this accident where she was thrown off of one of the rodeos, and she's kind of trying to get over the trauma that she experienced during this incident, and she goes back to her small town where her brother and her family lives, and she has a romance with her brother's best friend who owns a bar. And it's a small town cozy romance. It doesn't involve too much rodeo riding, but it does feature it in the main plot of the book because the heroine is definitely someone who has that as a profession. So if you haven't read this one, it's also a good one to start with. Next up, we've got Gymnastics. Now, for Gymnastics, I'm going to recommend the full series by Lucia Franco. It's the Off Balance series. It is a dark, toxic romance, so please bear in mind that you need to look up the triggers for this one if you haven't read it yet. It's just difficult to explain all of the things that go on within those 5 books. But basically, we've got this relationship that is coach-athlete. It has a big age gap. There is a lot of very questionable decisions that are being made within this relationship. But we've got front and center a gymnast who is being coached by an ex-gymnast. So the two of them are so immersed into the gymnastics world. You definitely get a lot of insight into what happens with athletes who are going to be performing on a high level that is reaching the Olympic level. So the heroine in this one, Ria, she definitely wants to get into the Olympics, so she's looking for the best coach possible, and she finds that in Kova, who is this Russian ex Olympic medalist who decides that he's going to give her a shot even though he doesn't believe in her in the first place. But basically he starts training her, and then the two of them immediately sense that there is something between them that cannot be denied and cannot be stopped. So it takes them 5 books to figure out their shit, but basically it's very toxic, very dark. There is a lot of talk of medical conditions as well, so please bear in mind that, again, if you're going to be reading the series, you need to look up the triggers. Another book that features a gymnast I already mentioned is Burnout by Rebecca Jenshak, so if you like gymnastics, you may want to check out Burnout as well. We're continuing our streak of different kinds of sports. I'm not going to get into the populars yet. The next one up is skating. So last year I recommended From Look Off with Love by Mariana Zapata. This is definitely still my favorite ice skating romance, but now in the meantime I have read another one, actually another 2. The first one being Unsteady by Peyton Corinne. In this one we actually have again 2 sports. We've got the hero who is playing hockey and the heroine who is a figure skater. So this one definitely has all of those sports feels that you definitely are looking for within such a romance. And we've got a hero who is this star athlete within this hockey team, but he has had this incident because of which he is suffering panic attacks. And one day when he's on the rink very early in the morning, he's suffering such a panic attack. And then we've got our heroine who gets into the rink and she sees him and she helps him out with this panic attack. And they kind of start becoming friendly with each other. She has a very difficult family life backstory, and he is very well off from a very loving family. So the two of them kind of really complement each other with their backstory. So he tries to help her out with her family life. She tries to help him out with his sports life. So it's a very emotional romance. It hits you in the heart, and it definitely leaves you feeling like the development between the characters and like the romance is very organic, like they're supposed to grow together and into each other, and as a couple should be together. So yeah, I really love this one. And then another book that I want to recommend that features skating is the very popular Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. This again is a romance that features a hockey player and a figure skater. In this one we've got it's a college set romance where we've got our hero who is on the hockey team. The heroine is training to actually become an Olympics skater in pairs. So she has a partner for her skating, and she has some trouble with her routines. She has some trouble with her partner, and it becomes even more hectic for her when it turns out that the hockey team at their college does something stupid and their hockey rink becomes trashed, so they need to use the rink that the skaters are using. So she gets even less time to train with her partner, and she's very pissed off about it. And the hero and heroine kind of meet up first. They're kind of bickering, then they become friends, then he helps her out with her skating, and eventually feelings evolve. This is a very popular romance, but if you haven't read it yet, it's definitely going to give you the feels, because again, so much of the story is focusing on their sports development, their feelings, how they develop because of their love for sport as well, and how they help each other out in their respective sports. So yeah, this one is a very good one as well. The next sport I'm going to talk about is surfing. Now, last year I recommended the book by Joe Brashear called Try Easy. And that one was the first book within a series, the Aloha series. And it's a book that I really loved, so I decided to pick up the second book within the series. And that book is called Try Me. In this one, it's actually even more exciting to read about because we've got both the hero and heroine within the surfing circuit. And because this book is set in, I think, the 1960s, if I'm not mistaken, it's very unusual for a woman to be considered within the surfing circuit. So we've got the hero who helps the heroine out to get into competing within the surfing world. And that is such a wonderful kind of thing to see, like within that time, how it was that she couldn't get into it on her own and he was helping her out to get into that world. It was just superbly done. I really enjoyed this one and I definitely would recommend it, and I would actually recommend the first one as well. So yeah, both of these were just great. And now I'm going to talk about acrobatics. So I love acrobatics because we've got family history with acrobatics in our family, but we don't read, or at least I haven't read any books that center on acrobatics when it comes to the sport itself, so competitions for acrobatics. But I have read the two books by Kristen Becker Ritchie, which feature circus acrobatics. And the first book is Amour Amour and the second book is Infini. I know that they got renamed. I don't know the names for the new releases, but you can still find them on Goodreads as Amour Amour and Infini. We've got this Russian family that are very well known within the Vegas scene because they are in all these kind of Cirque du Soleil productions. And we've got our heroine who wants to be in one of those productions. She's a gymnast and she desperately wants to get into an audition for this circus group. And the romance is between herself and one of the family members of this Russian family who is very prominent within the scene, within the circus scene in Las Vegas. It's one of my favorite reads of all time. At least Amour Amour, but both of them actually are favorite reads of mine, but Amour Amour is just on a special level for me. I absolutely love this book. If you haven't read these two books by Kristen Becker Ritchie, they're definitely worth it. I know that everyone loves the Addicted series by these two authors, but these ones are just really special to me, and if you haven't read them, please do yourself a favor and pick them up. Now we're getting into the more popular sports. I've got two basketball recommendations for you. The first one being by R.S. Gray. It's King of the Court. This one I read I think it was a year ago. And at the beginning, when I had just read it, I was like, this was all right. But then the more I think about it, the more I appreciate how amazing this romance really was. We've got a heroine who lives in this small town. She used to live, I think, in LA, and she was doing this study where she really wanted to make it within her field, but then something happened within her family and she had to go back home and work very hard to earn money for some medical expenses for one of her family members. And then out of the blue, in comes this amazing basketball team that is going to be training for the Olympics. So all these amazing basketball stars are in this small town in the middle of nowhere for this training camp. And all of them go into this diner where the heroine works, and she immediately falls for one of the guys. Now, their romance in the beginning of the book is kind of like a whirlwind romance. And immediately, once the training camp is over, something happens that drives them apart. So essentially, within this book, we actually have a beginning of a romance and then a second chance romance a couple of years later. And I really appreciated that within the book, that there was kind of this time jump and them overcoming their kind of difficult situation at the start of the book, and they really had very strong feelings developed over a very short period of time, and you could really feel for them. So this is the first recommendation that really I kind of struck gold with it. I really enjoyed this one and I definitely would recommend it. And then the second one is obviously The Right Move by Liz Downford. I think I'm going to mention all of Liz Downford's books within the Windy City series within this recommendation video because all of them feature different sports and all of them are just superb. The Right Move features a basketball player and his sister's best friend who is a flight attendant. The two of them have forced proximity because his sister forces him to have her as his roommate for a short while until she finds a place to live. He reluctantly agrees, but once she comes to live with him, all bets are off and everything changes for them, and they're the absolute perfect and sweetest couple that you can imagine. They have this fake dating scenario within the book as well that makes it even sweeter. So The Right Move is definitely one that you need to pick up if you haven't already. Moving along to baseball, we've got 2 books by Liz Stamford as well. One of them was a favorite read of mine of last year. The other one is going to be releasing in a couple of weeks' time as we speak. The first one is Caught Up, and that one features a baseball player who is kind of thinking about quitting baseball because he has recently become a father. It was kind of a surprise pregnancy situation for him. He got a child on his doorstep and was told that the mother doesn't want to be involved in the life of the child, so he needed to step up as a father. And he doesn't know how to combine his career with taking care of a baby. So in comes the heroine, who is his coach's daughter, and at the moment she is kind of out of a job. She is a professional chef. She's going to have work in a couple of months' time, but before that she kind of wants to take a break. So her father decides to give her this proposition that she could nanny for the hero until she starts her new project, her new job. And she agrees. So this is a nanny sports romance. It's forced proximity. It's a lot of goodness, a lot of spice, a lot of banter, a lot of tension, a lot of angst, all the goodness. And then the second book is going to be Play Along. It's not the second book, it's the 4th book within the series. But the second book that features baseball within this series is Play Along, and it's going to be the hero from Caught Up, his brother. And then, if I'm not mistaken, the heroine is going to be their therapist. So their physical therapist, I think, like a physio. So I'm looking forward to this one. I already sensed from book 3, from Caught Up, that there was a lot of good banter between the hero and heroine from book 4. So I'm really looking forward to this one as well. And then the next sport is American football. So I haven't read very many American football centered stories because the hype around those kind of passed. So I haven't really had the opportunity to read a lot of these in the past 2 years. I know that Candy Steiner came with like 4 books within a series, like a new adult series that features football players, but I haven't read that one yet, so I'm not going to recommend it if I don't know that I've loved it. But I did read Sarah Adams' 2 books that feature NFL players. They're both within the same series, but they can be read as a standalone, I think. The first one is The Cheat Sheet, and the second one is The Rule Book. Both of them feature professional NFL players. The first one features a friends to lovers, actually best friends to lovers relationship, where the heroine is also a ballerina, and that is something wonderful. And then the second book features a second chance romance where the heroine, she broke the hero's heart when they were in college. Now they're in their 30s and she needs a job opportunity that involves him agreeing to work with her. And his heart was shattered, so he really doesn't want to work with her. So within the rule book, we get this second chance romance that involves some groveling, some pining, some bickering, some banter, and it was a really wonderful romance. I gave both of these, I think, 4 stars, and both of them are very low on the spice. So if you're looking for books that really don't have too much spice in them, the first one even is Closed Door, if I'm not mistaken. Those are really good options. This video is going to be really long, but I apologize. I really wanted to include all these sports. The next one is hockey. So with hockey romances, there have been so many different hockey romances that were so popular, but the ones that I really love the most are The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer. This one features a hockey player and his physical therapist within their team. They have this fake dating relationship. There's a lot of banter. There's a lot of prime hero worship of the heroine, and I just love that within books. And then the second one is one that I really loved. It's a male-male romance. It's a more emotional kind of romance. It's The Rest of the Story by Tal Bauer, where we've got an age gap romance between 2 teammates, and the 2 of them are just the most amazing kind of couple. There are a lot of triggers that you'll need to look up for this one because it does involve abuse. It does involve some very kind of heavy hitting topics within this one, but eventually like the happy ending for these two is just superb. So yeah, these two are my favorite hockey romances that I've read lately. And then the last sport I'm going to mention is what Americans call soccer, but we Europeans actually call football. So I'm going to stick to football here because that is the appropriate term if you ask me. We've got a romance by Karina Halley. This one is called The Forbidden Man. And within this one, we've got a forbidden romance between a woman who is the physical therapist for a football team, a very popular football team in Europe, and then the hero who is much younger than her, first of all. And the second thing is he doesn't care that the situation is forbidden. He's absolutely obsessed with the heroine and he's like, I'm going to risk it all, I just want to be with you. So we've got an obsessed hero, a reluctant heroine, but she really does feel a lot for him, so she kind of doesn't know how to fight against her feelings. So this one has a lot of angst, tension, and just all the goodness that you can expect from a forbidden romance. And then the second book I'm going to recommend that features football is one of the Bergman brothers books by Chloe Lees. It's the first book. Why I chose this one over the others, it's because the heroine is the one who plays football, and I just love that. I love when we see a female athlete within a male-dominated kind of sports field. This one features a hero and heroine who are in college, and the two of them have the same class. And there is this kind of awkward situation at the start of the book where she kind of asks him something and he doesn't respond to her. So she thinks that he's being an asshole to her, but he is actually deaf, so he didn't hear her asking the question. And when she finds out that this is the situation, she feels so horrible about what has happened, and she feels just so awkward that she was so insensitive towards his situation. But their relationship basically starts with that encounter, and it's just so good because the Bergman brothers are just the most amazing kinds of humans, because they were brought up in this loving kind of rowdy family. They have this amazing family dynamic, and all of them have been brought up with a lot of emotional connection, and just they're just the best. I don't know how to explain it more, but they just are the best. So we've got the hero and heroine who have this amazing, sweet and endearing romance. So it's not as angsty as The Forbidden Man by Karina Halley. So you definitely have very different kinds of romances here, but both of them are just so good. So my friends, these were all the romances that I wanted to recommend to you from all these various sports. I kind of went overboard with this one. I apologize that it's going to be so long, but I really hope that you're going to get the most out of it. So you're going to get a lot of recommendations from me out of this one. And if you have any kinds of romances to recommend to me with different kinds of sports, any kind of sports, I am interested. The only thing that I want to say is I'm not interested in reading Chloe Walsh's rugby series, because I read the first one, it wasn't a favorite of mine, it didn't capture my attention, so I'm not going to read the Taming series. But other than that, I'm open to anything. I want to read every and anything that features different kinds of sports. So please leave your recommendations for me down below in the comment box. Please like my video if you did like it, and also don't forget to subscribe. I hope to see you in the next one. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care and bye-bye.